just talking about the debate, like, so when someone watched the debate from other countries, like they were like, one of those gonna be the president, the way they were acting.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering why, like, there's no like other options, in the United States. Why only these two options?
That's a good question. So the way it works is, well, the United States has been dominated by two parties for forever, right? There's the Democrats and the Republicans. So the way it works is you have a bunch of candidates on each side, right? Yeah. And they all battle it out, and then eventually each party picks the one that's going to represent them, right? So that's how it works, right? So, the Democrats had Bernie Sanders and Kamala Harris and all these people, right? And then it whittled down to they chose Biden, right? And then obviously the Republicans had a couple people, but they sticking with Trump because he's the current president, right?
They choose, like, is like a voting, like, for the public, or is just between them? Like,
just between the parties, not the people. The people vote at the end,
Right.
Okay,
but it's the parties that pick the person, right?
To present them.
Yeah,
Okay.
to present them. Yeah.
Okay, got it.
So, like, let's say we're all part of one party. I'm not gonna say which one, and we're all battling out. We do our little debates, and then at the end, we all go, you know what? I think Joe would be is our best chance of winning. So we're going to pick Joe because Joe has to beat the other person and she gives us the best chance of winning. Does that make sense? Right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because in the end, whether you're Republican or whether you're Democrat, they all lie just to get into office. They say they're going to do all the stuff and they don't do it anyways, right? They just do whatever they need to do for their agenda, right? So yeah, I mean, we have a very important election coming up, and it's crazy too because we're in the middle of a pandemic. So there's not going to, I don't know if they're going to do polls like where people go to vote in person, because that's going to be just a mess, How do you protect people? Like, what are you going to social distance? Like, so there's going to be a lot of mail-in voters. And then that's what they're saying, that the current administration was trying to screw with the post office. Because guess what? How do you mess with the election? Well, if most people are going to mail by vote and the vote can't get in because they shut down a lot of stuff or they mess with the post office has no money to operate, right? Well, that's a perfect way to, try to mess around with the election. So I don't know. It's a pretty important election. Regardless of what side you're on, you need to get out there and vote, because,
educate yourself.
Educate yourself, right? Yeah.
Like what I'm gonna do.
And don't just vote because you believe in something. Like, that's the dumbest thing to do. Actually educate yourself and vote because it's gonna benefit you, right? But here's the thing, and I always tell people this, like, California is a Democratic state. What does that mean? It's always going to be Democrat. So there's something called the Electoral College.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you know this, Hatem, but every state counts as a certain number of points, right? So like last election, Hillary won the popular vote.
Yeah, I remember that.
Which means she had more votes than Trump. But Trump won the Electoral College, which means he won the points system. So, for example, like California, let's say it counts as 40 points, but Minnesota counts as 30 points. Florida counts as 30 points. So when you add those up, that's who wins the election. So what happens is California doesn't determine the election. Florida usually is all Republicans. So Florida usually goes to Republicans. California goes to Democrats. It's Ohio. It's Michigan. It's Wisconsin. It's all these middle states that are kind of on the fence that actually determine the vote. I'm not saying that your vote doesn't matter in California, but California always, I mean, since I've been alive, it's been a Democratic state. What does that mean? It's going to be majority Democrat. Like, no matter what, this will be a Democrat. So the votes will go to the Democrats, right? The points will go to the Democrats. Now, if the Democrats ever lost California, that would be a huge blow because it's always been Democratic, right? So really, this election is going to be won in Ohio, in Michigan, in Wisconsin, in those states that are kind of on the fence, right? Like those are the ones that went for Trump this time, when usually some of them were Democratic, right? So that's why Hillary lost, because she won most of the votes. If it would have just been on the total amount of votes, Hillary won. But it's not how it works. It's a pretty messed up system, I think. Like, it's a pretty broken system. But yeah, so I've always say that, you know, California's always been a Democratic state. So regardless of what you vote in California, it's probably 99.9% going to go to the Democrats, right? But we really have to, whichever party you are, it's those swing states, they call them, the ones that can swing back and forth. Those are the ones that really are important in this election. And Trump took those last time, right? Because he promised that he was going to give them jobs, and he's for the working man, and he's for America. He didn't do any of that stuff, right? But you know, he got the vote last time. So, anyways, it's a very important election. Go out and vote. I think it's November 3rd, right?
That's your birthday?
That's one day after my birthday, right? So go out and vote November 3rd. And regardless of who you're voting for, just vote, and let's see what happens, you know. It's going to be very interesting, that's for sure. I mean, there's talk about it's going to be a circus. They're going to delay it. They're going to make they're saying that we're not even going to really know who won for like a month later.
Why is that? Because
they're going to mess with everything. They're going to say, oh, these votes didn't count, or we didn't receive the votes. Like, I hope this is not correct, because usually we find out who won that day, right?
I think because like you're going to be voting by mail. Like, it's going to take longer, like, to just go to count, and some of the vote like get late, or I don't know how it works, but
yeah, and that's why they're messing with the post office. The post office almost went out of money. So if the post office doesn't have money to operate, that's going to delay the votes even more. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but it should be like there's a budget, you know, for the election, you know.
But the administration cut it because of the pandemic. They were running out of money. So it should have been in the stimulus package. Like in the stimulus, they're supposed to give the post office money so that they can survive, right? Because of what's been going on. Because they've still been working.
Yeah.
But the the economy's like not the same, right? So the big issue, and I don't know a lot about it. So I probably don't even know what I'm talking about. But I heard that they didn't want to give the post office money, and that would have affected all the mail-in votes. I think they finally gave them money. Like they finally did, but it's already done some damage, right? It's already kind of messed up. So anyways, go out and vote November 3rd, whichever party you're for. Your vote counts. You know, it's important. And we'll see what happens.